censored number 58, and it's entitled, How to Defeat a Conservative. Today's conservative is a slippery fellow. Arch-conservative Rush Limbaugh won't be bound by the dictionary definition of conservatism. He claims that his brand of conservatism differs from that of 30 years ago. And yet, William F. Buckley, Richard Weaver, Russell Kirk, Ayn Rand, and Newt Gingrich also call themselves conservatives. How can this be? 30 years ago, both Democrats and Republicans had conservative wings in their parties. Today's conservative propaganda has so demonized the Democrats that most people view all Democrats as socialists, communists, as liberals. Our minds have been trained to believe that conservatism only exists in the Republican Party. Today's conservatism seems to be everything to everyone. Today's conservative is a populist, a friend of big business, a Christian, a friend of the poor, and an elitist. Today's conservative wraps himself in the American flag and then mouths traitorous, anti-government sentiments. In the last 20 years, conservatives have gotten tax cut after tax cut, but yet they still say they're overtaxed. And even though supply-side economics failed miserably under Ronald Reagan, they want to try it again. Today's conservative has lied and failed for the last 30 years, yet believers still abound. And this is the crux of the matter. Today's conservatism is a religion. It's based on faith. What passes for brilliance and science is mere pedantry. Today's conservative politician runs a stealth campaign. He can't expose his true self. He must say one thing while doing something else. He must hide his Christianity. But if the heart of America is conservative, why this subterfuge? If this is all true, why do so many people still identify themselves as conservatives? Like religion, conservatism is usually inculcated early in life. Most conservatives don't do research and study the ideology and then decide to become a conservative. Conservatism is grown into. The creed is never questioned, even when it fails. Today's conservative tries to convince us that he has a monopoly on traditional family values. Rush Limbaugh has been married 3 times, Bob Dole twice, and Newt Gingrich twice. Conservatives make it seem as though no Democrat believes in marriage, family, or is even pro-life. This is nonsense. Conservatives believe that liberalism is a tumor and that liberal ideas are dangerous to individual freedom. Conservatives believe that God is a major element of our culture They believe in a static form of right or wrong that derives from their mythical and inflexible ideology. They believe that not paying taxes isn't being greedy. They believe in a natural aristocracy among men based on talent. Rush Limbaugh claims to have talent on loan from God. What talent? It doesn't take talent to read and talk about Republican current events, talking points. Any good gossip can do that. The word talent means a special natural ability or aptitude or the capacity for achievement or success. What Rush Limbaugh does isn't covered by either of these definitions. Limbaugh was a failure in radio until he was brought to New York and given nationwide exposure. In Sacramento, California, Limbaugh did exactly what he does today, and he remained provincial. It wasn't his talent that brought success. It was simply opportunity, luck, and someone paving the way. The fact is, Rush Limbaugh is devoid of talent and dreads the day when this becomes public knowledge. Limbaugh is devoid of substance. He's a pedant. He has no natural ability. He can't do research. He couldn't get through college. He can't write. He can't think. His answers are ready-made. He can only yak and try to prevent others from learning that he's a sham. Ex-Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, is the same. In all his years in the House, he was instrumental in getting one insignificant bill passed. Also, until he was elected Speaker of the House, no one wanted to publish his books. But now publishers offered him millions for them. In both of these instances, we're not dealing with talent, self-reliance, rugged individualism, or pulling up by the bootstraps. In these instances, we're dealing with name recognition, opportunity, and someone else, again, paving the way. These two didn't get ahead by exhibiting conservative virtues. One of the basic problems with today's conservative is that he believes that America is God-ordained, and that God ordains and establishes the nations of the world. Conservatives claim they believe in biblically based principles. Most conservatives believe they are Christians, yet they must lie to get elected. Conservatives believe that in a Christian economy, people will earn more with less work. In essence, conservatives are lazy. In fact, elite conservatives live off the work of others. They take public credit for the work of others. Yet conservatives will tell us that hard work increases productivity. Today's conservative believes in a Southern interpretation of our Constitution. They're against civil rights laws, but they'll tell us that they're not racist. Conservative Christians believe that our government is a blend of democracy, aristocracy, and monarchy. They will tell us that labor is the title deed to property. But if this were so, then the slaves would have owned the South. Christian conservatives also believe that the progressive income tax is unbiblical. They also believe that Social Security is welfare. Today's conservative realizes that interest group politics is devastating to our democracy, yet that's what he practices. Conservatives also know that liberalism, as conservatives define it, and conservatism are obstacles to a healthy political life. But they're stuck in their mythology. When Barry Goldwater was a presidential candidate, conservatism was viewed as a personality disorder. Since then, a successful propaganda campaign through the 1970s has made conservatism appear respectable. Today, even Democrats try to act like conservatives. Jimmy Carter was a conservative Democrat, but Reagan painted him as a liberal. Today, conservatives are trying to brand Bill Clinton as a liberal. Political conservatives regard the poor as a special interest group. But even here, they aren't consistent. For if the poor are a special interest group, then so are the rich. Today's conservative, Rush Limbaugh, Newt Gingrich, and those that surround G.W. Bush aren't conservatives at all. They are counter-revolutionaries, reactionaries. A true conservative believes that change and reform aren't identical. Quote, hasty innovation may be a devouring conflagration rather than a torch of progress, unquote. Today's conservative Republican tries to paint himself as a populist, when in fact, he's nothing more than an ass-kisser for big business. In the way things ought to be, Rush Limbaugh bragged that the poor fared well with supply-side economics under Ronald Reagan in the 1980s. Limbaugh lied. The taxes of the poor rose about 15%, and those of the rich fell by about 15%. The incomes of the rich doubled. Limbaugh makes the claim that revenues rose when the taxes of the rich were cut. He neglects to say that the tax base was broadened, the payroll tax was doubled, and more of the poor were forced to pay taxes. Rush Limbaugh is a liar. His evidence is fraudulent. One way to defeat a conservative is never to believe him. He must be made to prove all things. History has shown that conservatives have a penchant for misreading facts and statistics. They skew results and don't tell the whole truth. During the Medicare debate in the 90s, Newt Gingrich and Representative John Kasich maintained that growth from $4,800 to $7,100 over 7 years wasn't a cut. But their figures weren't in constant inflation-adjusted dollars. When pressed on the subject, John Kasich admitted that maybe they were being a little intellectually dishonest there. In fact, they were lying. To defeat a conservative, his mysticism must be exposed. The conservative is a man of faith and leads to a distorted world outlook that does. Because they lack a proven premise, the goals of conservatism can only be advanced by propaganda. Conservatism can only sneak into our hearts. It can't be welcomed in. In order to defeat a conservative, he must be forced to prove his God. This proof must be tangible and not merely pronouncements made by a Pat Robertson or Jerry Falwell, James Dobson, or Ralph Reed. Conservative mysticism leads to pedantry and ready-made answers. This type of thinking admits of no analysis or deductive reasoning. It's not subject to logic. Leaders who think this way are called Führer. Today's conservative pretends that he's a populist when in fact he's an elitist. Conservative William F. Buckley Jr. got his $100,000 to startup money for National Review from his father. By now, we all know that Rush Limbaugh didn't make it on his own, and Newt Gingrich never held a real private sector job. The preaching of self-reliance, rugged individualism, and up-by-the-bootstrap philosophy by conservatives is merely hot air. In the real world, talent and hard work aren't always rewarded. Conservatives can be defeated when their talk of tax cuts and keeping what one earns is exposed as pure greed. Conservatives are vulnerable on their lack of compassion. They can be defeated when their revolutionary zeal is exposed as mere pedantry. Conservative ideas can't stand the tests of debate or even close scrutiny. This is why Rush Limbaugh doesn't have guests on his show. Limbaugh has even prepared his audience for Bob Dole's failure in the presidential debates. Conservatism flourishes only in one-sided venues and among controlled audiences. That's why G.W. Bush kicks out of his audiences those who might disagree with him. Without propaganda and faith, conservatism can't survive in the marketplace of ideas. Conservatives can only theorize or use computer models. The real world is beyond their understanding. They can't govern living reality, nor guide it. The conservative creed folds when its Christian underpinnings are undermined. God is apolitical and belongs to no political party. Conservatives must not be allowed to use God to further their political goals. Conservatives are defeated when they can't polarize the electorate. They're defeated when they must heed the words of Goethe, that truth is the hypothesis that works. Rush Limbaugh said, "I don't have compassion for the poor." Just this one statement shows us that his Christianity is phony. The Bible teaches the exact opposite of Rush Limbaugh's statement. How is it that this man has any credibility left? Rush Limbaugh is truly a big, fat liar. Conservative Senator Phil Gramm once said that we're the only nation in the world where all our poor people are fat. Because of this myth, he wanted to cut the food stamp program. This stupid individual has no idea that obesity has nothing to do with being well nourished. Conservatives love the simple and stupid answers to the questions of life. On the campaign trail, we have newly converted conservative, or we had Bob Dole trying to out-conservative Bill Clinton. None of this answers the voters' needs. We need real personalities with real ideas and real answers. Conservatism can and must be defeated once and for all. It must be laid to rest and never be allowed to rear its ugly head again. The dung of conservatism must be buried deep, and a tombstone on its grave should read, "Here lies political conservatism. May it rest in peace forever." The end.
Hi, this is William Morrow. Are you one of those people who join a health club, and after they have your big, overpriced annual membership, you notice that you're on your own with little or no results even after all the promises? Then the website Personal Trainer is for you.
Thank you very much, William H. Morrow III.
So you lost another argument with a conservative, right-wing Republican. He talked over you. He screamed and yelled. He brought out the Bible. He thumped it. He quoted scripture to you. You were lost because you came at him with facts. Nothing but facts. And you expected that would make you look good. That would make you win the argument, but it didn't. You know why you lost the argument? You know why you're going to lose your next argument? Because you don't read Censored. Censored, a 30-year-old newsletter that shows you how to defeat a conservative. Read Censored, and you'll have all the ammunition you need. Every time you get into an argument with a right-wing conservative, so-called Christian. Censored, that's all you need. Read it, and defeat a conservative.
Greetings, listeners. Let me speak to you for a moment about the foundation of our entire organization, Newsletter Censored. It was founded by our mentor, the Reverend Dr. William J. Eisenman, in 1977. It discusses the 5 taboos of American life: politics, religion, health, human sexuality, and child rearing. You won't find anything like this in the mainstream media and the press. It reveals the kind of truth that most people are afraid to hear. Can you handle it? We are living in the end times, so in order to defeat a conservative and save America, you need Newsletter Censored. Go to www.newslettercensored.com, click on the printable order form page, and with your gift to support this work, get your free annual subscription. This is James P. Madonna of Mega Life 21, the hardest hitting internet talk radio station on the planet.